Captain Hyunwoo Park was drinking his third cup of coffee when the universe changed forever. He sat at his desk aboard the Earth Defense Station Aegis, watching the same boring scanner readings he had watched every day for 2 years. Space was mostly empty, which was exactly how he liked it. Empty space meant no problems, no alien pirates, and no paperwork. The coffee was terrible, but it was hot. Hyunwoo had learned to appreciate small things during his long shifts monitoring the edge of human space. He was about to take another sip when the scanner began screaming. Red lights flashed across his control panel. The computer made sounds he had never heard before. Numbers rolled across his screen so fast he could barely read them. Energy readings that should have been impossible filled his monitors. What the hell? Hyunwoo set down his coffee and leaned forward. His hands moved quickly over the controls, trying to understand what he was seeing. The readings had to be wrong. Nothing in space gave off that much energy except stars, and there were no stars where these readings came from. Then he saw them. 16 massive shapes appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Each ship was the size of a city. They hung in space like dark mountains, blocking out the stars behind them. Hyunwoo stared at his screen. His coffee grew cold. His hands shook as he reached for the emergency communication button. Command, this is Captain Park at Monitoring Station 7. We have contact. The voice that answered him was calm and professional. What kind of contact, Captain? The alien kind, sir. 16 ships, very big ships. Silence filled the communication channel for 10 long seconds. Then the voice came back, no longer calm. Captain, are you certain? Hyunwoo looked at his screens. Again. The ships were still there, dark and threatening against the stars. Yes, sir, I'm very certain. On Earth, President Ji-Hai Kim was in the middle of a boring budget meeting when her phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and frowned. Only 3 people had this number, and they only called during emergencies. Excuse me, she said to the group of tired-looking officials around the conference table. She stepped into the hallway and answered the phone. Madam President, we have a situation. The voice belonged to Defense Minister Taemin Lee. He sounded like he had been running. We need you in the war room immediately. How immediately? Ji-Hai asked. 5 minutes ago would be good. Ji-Hai had been president for 3 years. She had dealt with natural disasters, economic problems, and angry politicians. But she had never heard Taemin sound scared before. I'm on my way. The war room was full of people running around with papers and tablets. Large screens showed maps and numbers and things that looked very complicated. Taemin met her at the door. 16 alien ships appeared at the edge of our solar system 20 minutes ago, he said without any greeting. They're big, really big. Ji-Hai followed him to the main display screen. She looked up at the image of the alien fleet and felt her stomach drop. The ships looked like something from a nightmare. They were dark and covered in what looked like weapons. Lots of weapons. How big? She asked. Each ship is about the size of Manhattan, said a woman Ji-Hai recognized as Dr. Dayun Choi, the nuclear physicist. And our sensors show they have energy shields around them. Very strong shields. What do they want? Before anyone could answer, the communication screens around the room lit up. A voice filled the air, speaking in perfect English with a strange accent that made Ji-Hai's skin crawl. People of Earth. I am Admiral Kethmore of the Vorthak Empire. Your world lies in our path of expansion. You have 72 hours to surrender your planet and your people. If you do not surrender, we will destroy your world and take it anyway. You cannot fight us. You cannot hide from us. You can only choose to live as our subjects or die as our enemies. The message repeated in Chinese, then Spanish, then Arabic. The alien admiral's voice was calm and cold, like he was reading a shopping list instead of threatening to destroy billions of people. Ji-Hai looked around the room. Every face showed the same expression. Fear. Pure, simple fear. What can we do? She asked. Taemin pulled up another screen showing Earth's defense forces. 12 ships, all much smaller than the alien vessels. Our entire fleet wouldn't last 5 minutes against one of their ships, he said. Their weapons could crack our planet in half. Their shields can stop anything we can throw at them. Dr. Dayun stepped forward. I've been analyzing their energy, signatures. These aren't just warships, they're planet killers. Each one has enough firepower to turn Earth into an asteroid field. Jihai sat down heavily in a chair. So we surrender or we die. Those seem to be our only choices, Taemin said. Back on the Aegis station, Hyunwoo was still studying the alien ships when his personal phone rang. The caller ID showed his sister's name. So Young Park. You picked a bad time to call, sis, he said when he answered. I know about the aliens, So Young said. It's all over the news. Are you okay up there? I'm fine. Scared, but fine. Hyunwoo looked at his screens again. So Young, you study how people think, right? Behavior and psychology stuff? Yes. Why? Something's bothering me about these ships, the way they're arranged. So Young was quiet for a moment. What do you mean? Hyunwoo switched his screen to show the tactical display. The 16 alien ships hung in space in a perfect formation. It looked impressive and threatening. They're not positioned for an attack, he said. If they wanted to destroy us, they could spread out and hit us from all sides. Instead, they're lined up like they're on parade. Like they're showing off? Exactly. They want us to see them. They want us to be scared. So Young was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was thoughtful. Hyunwoo, I need to make some phone calls. Can you send me all the data you have on their formation? Why? Because I think you just figured out something very important. These aliens might be scarier than we thought. Or they might be more scared than we thought. After she hung up, Hyunwoo stared at the alien fleet. The ships hadn't moved since they arrived. They just sat there, dark and threatening, waiting for humanity's response. He thought about what So Young had said. Maybe the aliens were scared, too. Maybe they had never encountered humans before and didn't know what to expect. Maybe that perfect threatening formation wasn't just for show. Maybe it was because they were nervous. Hyunwoo picked up his cold coffee and took a sip. It was still terrible, but somehow it tasted a little better. He looked at the alien ships again and felt something he hadn't expected to feel. He felt curious. What kind of people traveled across the galaxy in ships full of weapons? What were they really like under all that armor and technology? Were they bullies who picked on weaker planets, or were they just scared travelers trying to find a place to call home? Only one way to find out, he thought. But first, Earth had to decide what to do with 72 hours and 16 planet-killing spaceships hanging over their heads. The clock was ticking. So Young Park had studied human behavior for 15 years. She had written papers about how people acted during disasters, how they made decisions under pressure, and how they responded to threats. But she had never studied how humans should respond to alien invasions because until yesterday, alien invasions only happened in movies. She sat in her small office at Seoul National University, surrounded by psychology books and research papers, thinking about her brother's observation. The alien ships were showing off. That meant something important about their psychology. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed a government number. Dr. Park? This is Defense Minister Lee. We need your help. 2 hours later, So Young stood in the presidential war room looking up at the same screens that showed the alien fleet. She felt small and out of place among all the military officials and government ministers. But President Kim had called her here for a reason. Dr. Park, the president said, you study how people behave under stress. We need to know how we should behave under this stress. So Young looked at the tactical displays. The alien ships hadn't moved. They were still in their perfect threatening formation. May I ask what options you're considering? Defense Minister Taemin stepped forward. We can surrender immediately and hope they treat us well. We can try to negotiate for better terms. Or we can fight and probably die quickly. Those are the only options anyone can think of. What other options are there? President Kim asked. So Young studied the alien formation on the screen. She thought about everything she knew about psychology, about power, about fear. There might be a fourth option, she said slowly. But it sounds crazy. Right now, Listen to any idea that doesn't end with everyone dead, President Kim said. So-young took a deep breath. These aliens are trying to intimidate us. They want us to be afraid. They expect us to either surrender immediately or fight desperately. But what if we don't do what they expect? What do you mean? What if we act like they're not scary at all? The room went quiet. Several military officers looked at her like she had lost her mind. Defense Minister Tai-min frowned. Dr. Park, those ships can destroy our planet. I know, but think about it. They told us we have 72 hours to surrender. If they just wanted to destroy us, why give us time? Why talk to us at all? They could have blown up our planet the moment they arrived. Maybe they want our planet intact, someone suggested. Maybe, So-young said. Or maybe they want us to be afraid. Maybe fear is part of how they conquer people. What if we refuse to give them what they want? President Kim leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we act like nothing unusual is happening. No mass evacuations, no panic, no desperate military buildup. We just continue living our normal lives. The silence in the room was so complete that So-young could hear the air conditioning. Finally, President Kim spoke. You want us to ignore 16 planet-killing spaceships? I want us to act like we're not impressed by 16 planet-killing spaceships. Defense. Minister Tai-min shook his head. That's not strategy. That's suicide. Maybe, So-young said. But consider this. These aliens have probably conquered dozens of worlds. They know how to deal with planets that surrender quickly. They know how to deal with planets that fight desperately. But they might not know how to deal with a planet that just shrugs and goes back to work. Dr. Dayun, the physicist, looked thoughtful. It would certainly be unprecedented. Unprecedented doesn't win wars, Tai-min said. Neither does following the same playbook that failed for everyone else, So-young replied. Look, I'm not saying this will work. I'm saying it might be our only chance to survive with our dignity intact. President Kim was quiet for a long time. She stared at the alien ships on the screen. What would this look like in practice? Everyone goes to work tomorrow, So-young said. Children go to school, farmers tend their crops, office workers attend their meetings, the news reports on normal things. We act like the most natural thing in the world is having alien visitors in our solar system. And if they attack, then we die. But we die as ourselves, not as people cowering in fear. President Kim looked around the room. Comments? Tai-min crossed his arms. It's insane. Insane enough that it might work, Dr. Dayun said quietly. The psychological impact could be significant, added another advisor. If these aliens are used to intimidating their enemies, our lack of intimidation might confuse them. President Kim stood up. Dr. Park, you have 6 hours to prepare a detailed plan for this operation. We'll call it Operation Poker Face. Meanwhile, on Jeju Island, Min Ho-jang was planting his spring crops when his neighbors came running across the field, shouting about alien invaders and the end of the world. Min Ho listened to their panicked words, then looked up at the sky. He could see tiny dots of light where the alien ships hung in space. Huh, he said, and went back to planting. His neighbor grabbed his arm. Min Ho, didn't you hear us? Aliens. They're going to destroy the Earth. Min Ho straightened his back and wiped dirt from his hands. Maybe they will, he said. Maybe they won't. But these seeds still need to go in the ground. If the world ends, tomorrow, at least I'll have spent today doing something useful. In Seoul, Yoon Ji-seo was preparing to close her coffee shop early when the emergency broadcasts began. She watched the news on her small TV, saw the images of the alien fleet, and listened to the panicked voices of reporters and government officials. Then she looked around her shop. The morning rush was over, but there were still a few customers sitting at tables, drinking coffee and reading books. They looked nervous, but they were still there. Yoon-ji made a decision. She walked to her front door and flipped the sign from open to still open even with aliens. Her first customer the next morning was an old man who came in every day for black coffee and a newspaper. He sat in his usual seat and ordered his usual drink, Terrible business with those aliens, he said conversationally. Yes, Yunji agreed, serving his coffee. But the coffee is still good. The old man smiled. That's what I like about this place. Consistency. Across the city, comedian Dong-wook Kim was supposed to perform at a small club that evening. The club owner called him to cancel the show, saying no one would want to laugh with alien warships in the sky. Dong-wook showed up anyway. Only 12 people came, but he performed his full set. He even added some new material about alien invasions and the awkwardness of first contact. So these aliens show up with planet-killing weapons, he said to the small audience, and they give us 72 hours to surrender. 72 hours. My mother gives me less time to call her back. The audience laughed nervously, but they laughed. Back on the Aegis station, Hyunwoo received new orders from Earth Command. He read them twice, then read them again to make sure he understood correctly. The orders were simple. Continue normal monitoring duties. If the aliens tried to communicate, be polite, but not subservient. Act like their presence was interesting, but not alarming. Hyunwoo looked at the alien fleet on his screens. The ships were still there, still in formation, still waiting for humanity's response. He opened a communication channel and began typing a message. It wasn't an official government response. It wasn't a surrender or a declaration of war. It was something much more human. Attention alien fleet. This is Captain Hyunwoo Park of Earth Defense Station Aegis. We're having Korean BBQ for dinner tonight in the station mess hall. You're welcome to join us if you'd like. Fair warning though, the food is pretty spicy. Hope you guys like kimchi. He sent the message and waited. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kethmore stared at the message that had just appeared on his communication screen. In 40 years of conquest, he had received thousands of messages from worlds facing the Vorthak Empire. Desperate pleas for mercy, angry threats of resistance, offers of tribute and negotiation. He had never received an invitation to dinner. Sir, his communication officer asked, how should we respond? Kethmore read the message again. Korean BBQ, spicy food, kimchi. I don't know, he said finally. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethmore of the Vorthak Empire was completely confused. The 72-hour deadline passed at exactly 3:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Tuesday. Nothing happened. Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue and green planet below. According to his calculations, the humans should have surrendered hours ago. If not surrender, then panic. Mass evacuations, desperate military preparations, something. Instead, his sensors showed normal planetary activity. Cities functioned. Traffic moved. Spacecraft traveled between Earth and its colonies as if 16 Vorthak warships weren't hanging in their sky like swords of judgment. Sir, his tactical officer said nervously, the deadline has passed. Your orders? Kethmore had conquered 47 worlds. The pattern was always the same. Show overwhelming force. Give the primitive species time to understand their hopelessness. Accept their surrender or destroy their resistance. Move on to the next world. This was supposed to be world number 48. It was supposed to be simple. Fire a warning shot, Kethmore ordered. Destroy that small asteroid near their fourth planet. The weapons officer nodded. Target acquired, sir. Firing. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the flagship. The asteroid, roughly the size of a football stadium, simply ceased to exist. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface, a brief new star in the afternoon sky. On Earth, Professor Young-Soo Oh was teaching his afternoon astronomy class when his students started pointing at the sky and talking excitedly. He looked up through the classroom window and saw the bright flash where the asteroid had been. Oh, he said calmly. Looks like our visitors just gave us a demonstration. His students turned to him with wide eyes. Professor, aren't you scared? Young-Soo adjusted his glasses and smiled. Well, it was a pretty impressive light show. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. The Perseid meteor shower last month had better timing, but these aliens definitely win points for dramatic effect. Within an hour, Young-Soo was on television, giving his professional analysis of the alien weapon demonstration. He spoke the same way he discussed any astronomical phenomenon, with scientific interest and calm professionalism. The energy output was approximately equivalent to a small nuclear weapon, he told the news anchor. Very precise targeting. Excellent beam coherency. From a purely technical standpoint, it's quite remarkable engineering. Professor, doesn't this demonstration worry you? Oh, certainly. But worry and appreciation aren't mutually exclusive. I can be concerned about the implications while still admiring the craftsmanship. On the Vorthak flagship, Admiral Kethmore watched the human news broadcast with growing confusion. The human scientist was discussing Vorthak weapons technology like he was reviewing a piece of art. There was no fear in his voice, no desperation, just academic interest. Sir, the communication officer reported, we're receiving another message from the humans. Read it. The officer hesitated. It's an invoice, sir. A what? An invoice. For littering in their solar system. They're charging us 50,000 credits for improper waste disposal, and asking us to please clean up after ourselves in the future. Kethmore stared at the message on his screen. Below the invoice was a helpful brochure about Earth's environmental protection policies, authored by someone named Dr. Jae-Sung Kwon. There was even a phone number to call if they had questions about proper debris disposal procedures. They're charging us for destroying the asteroid? Yes, sir. They also included a customer satisfaction survey asking us to rate their waste management services. In Seoul, kindergarten teacher Hai Won-young was helping her 5-year-old students with their daily art project when little Subin raised her hand. Teacher Young, my mommy says there are scary spaceships in the sky. That's right, Subin. Would you like to draw them? For the next hour, Haiwan watched her students create colorful drawings of the alien fleet. But through the eyes of children, the imposing warships became something different. Subin drew them as friendly whales swimming through space. Min Jun turned them into flying castles with rainbow flags. So he made them into giant robots waving hello. That evening, Haiwan posted the drawings on her social media account with the hashtag #WelcomeNeighbors. Within hours, the post had been shared thousands of times. News outlets picked it up. Soon, children all over the world were drawing pictures of the alien ships. The Vorthak monitoring stations intercepted these transmissions. They showed Admiral Kethmore rooms full of small humans creating cheerful depictions of his terrifying war fleet. They're turning us into children's toys, he muttered. Sir? Nothing. Tactical analysis? His intelligence officer pulled up a holographic display. No military buildup detected, no evacuation procedures. Their defense fleet remains in standard patrol positions. All civilian activities appear normal. What about their communications? Standard, commercial and personal traffic. Oh, and sir, we've been monitoring their entertainment broadcasts. A comedian named Dong-wook Kim did an entire performance about us last night. Show me. The main screen filled with video of a small human standing on a stage in front of other humans. Dong-wook was in the middle of his set. So these aliens show up with ships the size of cities, Dong-wook was saying. And they tell us we have 3 days to surrender. 3 whole days. That's more time than my landlord gave me to fix my broken toilet. I'm starting to think these aliens are more reasonable than my property management company. The audience laughed. They were laughing at the Vorthak Empire. Kethmore turned off the broadcast. In 4 decades of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Fear, anger, desperation, these were emotions he understood and could work with. But humor? Casual indifference? Invoice for littering? Sir, his communication officer said hesitantly. There's another message from the space station, Captain. The one who invited us to dinner? Yes, sir. Captain Park. He's asking if we need direction somewhere. He says if we're lost, they have some very good star charts they'd be happy to share. Admiral Kethmore sat down heavily in his command chair. The humans were treating the Vorthak Empire like confused tourists who had taken a wrong turn somewhere, in space. On Earth, So-Young Park was in another meeting with President Kim and the Emergency Council. The reports coming in from around the world were encouraging. People were scared, yes, but they were following the plan. Normal life continued. The aliens had made their demonstration, and humanity had responded with environmental regulations and customer service surveys. "How are our people holding up?" President Kim asked. "Better than expected," So Young replied. The initial panic wore off quickly once people saw that normal activities were continuing. There's been a surge in gallows humor. Comedy clubs are packed. Social media is full of alien invasion jokes, and somehow our tourism industry is actually seeing an increase. Tourism? People want to get better views of the alien ships. We've got tour groups setting up telescopes and taking photos. Someone started selling t-shirts that say, "I survived the Vorthak invasion, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt." Defense Minister Taman looked skeptical. "This can't last. Eventually they'll realize we're not taking them seriously and attack." "Maybe," So Young agreed. "But every day we maintain normalcy is another day their psychological advantage weakens. They're used to dealing with terrified populations. They don't know how to handle a population that treats them like a minor inconvenience." On the space station, Hyunwoo was finishing his daily report when his communication system chimed. He had a message from the alien fleet. His heart rate increased slightly as he opened it. The message was short and in broken English. "Human Captain Park, why you not afraid?" Hyunwoo stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he typed back, "Hello there. Thanks for reaching out. Why should we be afraid? You haven't actually hurt anyone yet. Are you planning to hurt someone? Because if you are, we'd appreciate a heads up so we can plan accordingly. Also, that asteroid destruction was pretty impressive. But you left debris floating around. Our Environmental Protection Agency wanted me to mention that." He paused, then added, "By the way, the dinner invitation is still open. We have enough kimchi to feed an army. Or a fleet of alien invaders. Same thing, really." On the flagship, the communication officer read Hyunwoo's response to Admiral Kethmore 3 times before he was sure he understood it correctly. "He's asking us if we plan to hurt anyone," the officer reported. "And he's still worried about the asteroid debris." Kethmore rubbed his temples. He was getting a headache, which shouldn't have been possible for a warrior of his genetic enhancement level. "What kind of species asks their conquerors about their schedule?" "I don't know, sir. But he's also still offering us food." "Food?" Kethmore looked at the planet below. "They're offering food to an invasion fleet. Should I respond, sir?" Kethmore thought about his orders from the Vorthak High Command. Conquer the planet. Accept surrender or destroy resistance. Simple, clear instructions that had worked on 47 previous worlds. But none of those worlds had offered him kimchi. "No. Response for now," he ordered. "Continue monitoring their communications. I need to understand what we're dealing with here." What Admiral Kethmore didn't understand was that he was dealing with something his empire had never encountered before. A species that refused to let fear change who they were, even when faced with certain death. 3 weeks had passed since the Vorthak fleet arrived. Admiral Kethmore stood in his private quarters staring out at the small blue planet that was supposed to have surrendered by now. His reflection in the metal wall looked tired. Even his armor seemed to hang differently on his frame. The High Command had sent 3 increasingly urgent messages demanding to know why Earth was still unconquered. Kethmore had sent 3 increasingly desperate reports trying to explain the unexplainable. How do you tell your superiors that you can't conquer a planet because its people keep offering you food and customer service surveys? His door chimed. Enter. Sub-Commander Ralthor stepped inside carrying a datapad. "Sir, we have the daily intelligence report on human activities." "Let me guess. More normal behavior?" "Yes, sir. And, sir, the humans have started a new tradition. Something called Alien Appreciation Week." Kethmore turned away from the window. "What?" Ralthor consulted his pad. "Several human cities have declared this week to be Alien Appreciation Week. They're having festivals celebrating our arrival. There are parades, street food vendors, children's activities. They're celebrating us?" "Yes, sir." "Oh, and they've invited us to participate. The mayor of Seoul sent a formal invitation asking if you'd like to be the Grand Marshal of their parade." Kethmore sat down at his desk and put his head in his hands. "Show me." The room's display screen activated, showing aerial views of Earth's major cities. Colorful banners hung between buildings. Humans walked through streets lined with food stalls and carnival games. Children wore costumes that looked like crude approximations of Vorthak armor. Musicians played strange, cheerful songs. "What are they celebrating?" Kethmore asked weakly. According to their broadcasts, they're celebrating the fascinating diversity of the universe and the exciting possibility of interspecies friendship. On Earth, Chef Seung-Hwan Yoon was having the busiest week of his life. When the city of Seoul announced Alien Appreciation Week, he had volunteered to coordinate food deliveries to the alien fleet. It seemed like the neighborly thing to do. He packed his small delivery drone with containers of bulgogi, kimchi, rice, cakes, and traditional Korean side dishes. Each container had a handwritten note explaining what the food was and suggesting wine pairings, even though he had no idea if aliens drank wine. The drone made its way through space toward the massive alien flagship. Seung-Hwan watched through the drone's camera as it approached the enormous vessel. The ship was intimidating up close, all dark metal and weapon ports, but Seung-Hwan had cooked for food critics and demanding customers. Aliens couldn't be scarier than a bad restaurant review. On the flagship, sensors detected the approaching drone. Weapons officers asked for permission to destroy it. "Sir, small craft approaching. Hostile intent unknown." Admiral Kethmore looked at the tactical display. The drone was the size of a refrigerator and moving at the speed of a leisurely walk. "What are its weapon signatures?" "No weapons detected, sir. It appears to be carrying food containers." "They're sending us food again." "Yes, sir." "Should we destroy it?" Kethmore thought about the last food delivery, which his science officer had analyzed and declared nutritionally fascinating. The kimchi had been particularly intriguing, a fermentation process unknown to Vorthak science. Let it dock. Have a security team meet it. 20 minutes later, Sub-Commander Ralthor entered, Kethmore's quarters carrying several containers and a small card. "The food delivery, sir, and there's a note." Kethmore read the card. It was written in careful English. "Dear alien friends, I hope you enjoy these traditional Korean dishes. The bulgogi is best when warm, but the kimchi can be eaten at any temperature. If you have any food allergies, please let us know and we'll adjust future deliveries. Also, if you'd like to try cooking classes, I teach them every Tuesday evening. Chef Seung-Hwan Yoon." "Cooking classes," Kethmore muttered. "They want to teach us how to cook." "Sir, there's more. We've been monitoring their communications networks. A musician named Mi Young Choi composed a song for us. She's been broadcasting it on all frequencies." "A song?" "Yes, sir. It's called Welcome to Our Solar System. Would you like to hear it?" "No." "Yes." "I don't know." Kethmore opened one of the food containers. The smell was strange but not unpleasant. "Play it." The room filled with gentle music. A woman's voice sang in Korean, then English. "From across the starlight sea you came, travelers with no known name. Though your ships are large and strong, we invite you to belong. Welcome to our solar system. Welcome to our little home. May you find the peace you're searching for in the vastness where you roam." The song continued for 3 more verses, each one extending friendship and curiosity rather than fear or submission. Kethmore ate the bulgogi while listening. It was delicious, which somehow made everything worse. In downtown Seoul, janitor Kyung-ho Lee was working his night shift at an office building when he noticed something unusual outside. A small probe about the size of a basketball hovered near the window. It had tiny lights and what looked like cameras. Most people would have called security or run away. Kyung-ho knocked on the window and waved. The probe moved closer to the glass. Kyung-ho held up his coffee cup in a toasting gesture, then pointed to himself and then to the street below. The probe seemed to understand. It followed him as he finished his shift and left the building. "You want to see the city?" Kyung-ho asked the floating device. He knew it couldn't understand Korean, but talking felt natural. "Come on, I'll show you around." For the next 2 hours, Kyung-ho gave the alien probe a walking tour of Seoul. He showed it a late-night food cart, a 24-hour bookstore, and a small park where old men played chess even at 2 in the morning. The probe followed him everywhere, its cameras recording everything. "This is how we live," Kyung-ho told it as they sat on a bench feeding pigeons. Nothing fancy, just regular people doing regular things. The probe hovered at eye level, its lights blinking in what might have been a pattern. You probably have families too, right? Wherever you come from? Kyung-ho shared his sandwich with the pigeons. Are they waiting for you to come home? Do they worry about you being so far from home? On the flagship, the probe's recording played on Admiral Kethmore's main screen. He watched the human janitor's casual kindness, his easy acceptance of alien technology, his assumption that even invaders might have families who missed them. Sir, Intelligence Officer Veltar reported, this is the 15th documented case of humans showing friendliness to our reconnaissance equipment. They don't run from our probes, they wave at them. They try to communicate. This human actually shared food with our surveillance device. Analysis? Either they're incredibly sophisticated in their deception, or they genuinely aren't afraid of us. Kethmore studied the recording. The human, Kyung-ho, according to their intelligence files, looked completely relaxed sitting next to advanced Vorthak technology. He talked to the probe like it was a curious neighbor who had stopped by for a visit. Sir, there's something else. High Command is demanding an immediate status report. They want to know why conquest is taking so long. Kethmore closed his eyes. How could he explain that conquest was impossible when the enemy refused to be conquered? How could he tell the High Command that Earth's defense strategy consisted of dinner invitations and tourist parades? Sir, your response to High Command? Tell them? Kethmore paused. Tell them the situation is more complex than anticipated. Sir, with respect, that's what you told them last week. Then tell them the truth. Tell them these humans have somehow made it impossible to conquer them without destroying everything that makes conquest worthwhile. I don't understand, sir. Kethmore gestured at the screen showing Kyung-ho feeding pigeons while an alien probe watched. Neither do I, Sub-Commander. Neither do I. That night, Kethmore made a decision that went against everything in his military training. He opened a direct communication channel to Earth's government. This is Admiral Kethmore of the Vorthak Fleet. I request a meeting with your leaders. The response came back within an hour, signed by President Ji-Hai Kim. Dear Admiral Kethmore, we would be delighted to meet with you. The United Nations building in New York has an excellent conference room, and we promise the coffee is better than what you probably get on your ship. When would be convenient for you? Even their formal diplomatic correspondence sounded like they were planning a friendly neighborhood get-together. Kethmore realized he was about to do something that no Vorthak admiral had ever done before. Meet with representatives of a world he was supposed to conquer, not to accept their surrender but to try to understand why they wouldn't let him conquer them properly. It was either the smartest decision of his career, or the one that would end it, permanently. Either way, he was curious about that coffee. Admiral Kethmore had worn his battle armor to negotiate the surrender of 47 worlds. Today, he wore it to visit the United Nations building in New York City, and he had no idea what he was walking into. His shuttle landed on the building's roof at exactly 2 p.m., as scheduled. No weapons were pointed at him, no defensive shields activated. A small group of humans stood waiting, led by a woman who looked remarkably calm for someone meeting an alien invasion commander. Admiral Kethmore, President Ji-Hai Kim said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture he had observed in their cultural databases. Welcome to Earth. I hope your journey down was pleasant. Kethmore stared at the offered hand for a moment, then clasped it carefully with his armored gauntlet. President Kim, thank you for agreeing to meet. Of course. Come inside. We have tea ready, and my aide Soonja made cookies. I hope you like chocolate chip. The Vorthak admiral followed the human leaders into the building. He noticed there were no security checkpoints, no weapon scanners, no signs of the defensive preparations he expected from a planet under invasion. Instead, the walls were decorated with children's artwork, the same cheerful drawings of his fleet that had been circulating on Earth's communication networks. President Kim noticed him looking at the pictures. The kindergarten class from Seoul sent these. They wanted to make sure you felt welcome. They drew my warships as whales. Children see the world differently than adults, said the woman walking beside them. I'm Dr. So Young Park, by the way. I study human psychology. Dr. Park, you're the one who designed this strategy. I made some suggestions. The strategy was mostly just letting humans be human. They entered a conference room that looked nothing like a military planning center or surrender ceremony. A simple wooden table held a tea service, plates of cookies, and folders of documents. Sunlight streamed through windows that offered a view of the city below, where life continued its normal rhythm. Admiral Kethmore sat down carefully in a chair that creaked under the weight of his armor. President Kim poured tea from a ceramic pot decorated with small flowers. "So," she said, passing him a cup. "What can we do for you, Admiral?" The question was so unexpected that Kethmore nearly dropped his tea. What you can do for me?" "Well, you requested this meeting. I assume you need something." Kethmore set down his teacup and leaned forward. "President Kim, I came here because I don't understand what's happening. My fleet arrived 4 weeks ago with overwhelming force. We gave you an ultimatum. We demonstrated our weapons. You should have surrendered or attacked by now." "Should we have?" President Kim asked, offering him the plate of cookies. "Every other world we've encountered has followed that pattern. Fear, then submission or desperate resistance." So Young leaned forward. "Admiral, may I ask how many worlds the Vorthak Empire has conquered?" 47. "And how many offered you cookies and street festivals?" Kethmore was quiet for a moment. "None." "Then perhaps," President Kim said gently, "you've never encountered humans before." The Admiral looked around the room. The other humans present, ministers and advisors, sat calmly drinking tea. One was actually eating a cookie while reading documents. None of them looked like people whose planet was being threatened by an invasion fleet. "I don't understand," Kethmore said finally. "Aren't you afraid of us?" "Terrified," President Kim replied cheerfully. "Your ships could turn our planet into space dust, we know this. Then why aren't you surrendering?" So Young spoke up. "Admiral, in your 47 previous conquests, what happened to the people after they surrendered? They became subjects of the Empire. Their worlds were incorporated into our territory. They served our interests. And the ones who resisted? They were destroyed. So surrender meant survival as slaves and resistance meant death. Essentially, yes." So Young nodded. "We calculated that neither option was acceptable to us." "Then what option did you choose?" President Kim smiled. "We chose to be ourselves." "I don't understand what that means." "It means," President Kim said, refilling his teacup, "that we decided if we were going to die, we would die as humans. Not as people cowering in fear. Not as desperate fighters throwing themselves uselessly against superior force. Just as ourselves. People who plant gardens and tell jokes and make food for strangers and try to be kind, even when kindness seems pointless." Kethmore stared at her. "You chose to face annihilation by being nice?" "We chose to face the unknown by being who we are," So Young corrected. "Admiral, your people conquer through intimidation, but intimidation only works if the target population changes their behavior because of fear. What if they don't?" "But you are afraid." "Of course we're afraid. But we decided that being afraid and letting fear control us are two different things." The Admiral sat back in his chair. The armor that had intimidated planetary leaders across the galaxy suddenly felt heavy and uncomfortable. "This is unprecedented." "We know," President Kim said. "We studied your previous conquests. Every world you encountered either begged for mercy or fought desperately. We thought we'd try a third approach, which is curiosity, hospitality. The assumption that even people with planet-killing weapons might just be travelers who haven't been properly welcomed yet." Kethmore looked out the window at the city below. People walked on sidewalks. Traffic moved through streets. Children played in parks. It looked like a normal Tuesday afternoon on a world not under threat of invasion. "You're treating us like tourists, aren't you in a way?" So Young asked. "You travel from world to world, seeing new places, meeting new people. The only difference is that most tourists don't carry weapons of mass destruction." "We're conquerors, are you?" President Kim asked quietly. "Admiral, in 4 weeks, you haven't conquered anything. You've received dinner invitations, city tour guides, cooking lessons, and concert performances. Your probe operators have been given walking tours of our cities. Your fleet has been invited to parades. When exactly did the conquering part start? The question hit Kethmore like a physical blow. She was right. For 4 weeks, his fleet had sat in orbit accomplishing nothing except eating Korean food and watching children's drawings of their ships. We could destroy you, he said quietly. Yes, President Kim agreed. You could. Is that what you want to do? It's what the High Command expects. But is it what you want to do? Kethmore thought about Kyung-ho sharing his sandwich with pigeons, while treating a Vorthak surveillance probe like a curious friend. He thought about children drawing his warships as friendly whales. He thought about Chef Sung Hwan sending food deliveries with personal notes asking about dietary restrictions. I don't know, he said finally. Admiral, So Young said gently, can I ask you something personal? Do you have a family? The question caught him off guard. I have a mate, 2 offspring. Do they know where you are right now? They know I'm on a conquest mission. Are they proud of your conquests? Kethmore was quiet for a long time. They ask me to come home. They say the glory of the Empire isn't worth how long I'm away. What would they think if they knew you'd found a world that offered you friendship instead of fear? The Admiral closed his eyes. They would ask me why I didn't stay. President Kim reached across the table and gently touched his armored hand. Admiral, what if I told you that you don't have to conquer us? What if there was another option, such as friendship, trade agreements, cultural exchange, an alliance between the Vorthak Empire and Earth? The High Command would never. The High Command sent you to conquer Earth. But what if you brought them something better than another conquered world? What if you brought them an ally? Kethmore looked at the humans around the table. They weren't begging for their lives or trying to negotiate surrender terms. They were offering him something he had never encountered in 47 conquests, genuine partnership. You would ally with people who came to destroy you? Admiral, President Kim said with a smile, you showed up with enough firepower to crack our planet and we offered you dinner. I think we're both a little crazy. That might be exactly what makes this work. For the first time in weeks, Admiral Kethmore laughed. It was a sound his armor's vocal processors had never been designed to amplify, and it came out as a strange mechanical wheeze that somehow conveyed genuine amusement. You are completely insane, he told them. Thank you, President Kim said. We'll take that as a compliment. 6 months later, Admiral Kethmore stood in his quarters aboard the flagship, now permanently stationed in Earth orbit as the first Vorthak embassy ship. His formal report to the High Command sat on his desk, recommending that Earth be granted full alliance status within the Empire. The report was 3 pages long, but the important part was the first line. Conquest psychologically impossible. Recommend immediate diplomatic partnership. Outside his window, Earth turned slowly in space, blue and green and utterly unchanged by the arrival of 16 Vorthak warships. In the distance, he could see other ships, human vessels now carrying Vorthak trade goods to the outer colonies, Vorthak science ships sharing technology with human researchers. His communication system chimed. Another dinner invitation from Captain Park on the space station. This time it was for bibimbap and something called fusion cuisine that combined human and Vorthak cooking techniques.